Welcome to Sleep with Facts. Tonight, we journey to the bottom of the world, to a place where silence reigns, where time moves differently, and where beneath miles of ancient ice, an entire hidden world waits in the darkness. You are safe and warm in your bed. Let your body sink deeper into the mattress, feeling the weight of the blankets around you, like snow settling on a quiet landscape. Your breathing is slowing, becoming rhythmic, like the gentle pulse of waves beneath polar ice. As you listen to these words, you will drift, just as we drift now, southward, toward the frozen continent at the edge of the earth. Imagine yourself standing on the deck of a research vessel, cutting through the dark waters of the Southern Ocean. It is summer here, but summer means something different in Antarctica. The sun hangs low on the horizon, never quite setting, casting everything in a golden twilight that seems to stretch for eternity. The air is cold, sharp, and impossibly clean. You breathe it in, and it fills your lungs like crystal water. Ahead, the first icebergs appear. They rise from the ocean like cathedrals, towering structures of blue and white that have drifted from the continent, carrying secrets frozen within them for thousands of years. Some are as large as buildings, their surfaces carved by wind and waves into smooth organic shapes that catch the light and glow. Others are small, no bigger than a car, drifting silently past the ship like ghosts. The water around them is the deepest blue you have ever seen, so dark it is almost black, and so cold that ice crystals form on the surface in delicate patterns. As the ship moves closer to the coast, the icebergs grow more numerous, forming a maze through which you must navigate slowly, carefully. The sound of the ship's engine fades, and you become aware of another sound, a deep, resonant creaking that comes from the ice itself. It is the sound of glaciers carving in the distance, of ancient ice shifting and settling, a sound that has echoed across this continent for millions of years. And then finally, you see it, the coast of Antarctica, a wall of ice that rises from the ocean, sheer and vertical, stretching in both directions as far as the eye can see. This is the Ross Ice Shelf, one of the largest bodies of floating ice on Earth, a sheet of frozen water the size of France that extends hundreds of miles out to sea. It is not land you are looking at, but ice. Ice so thick and so heavy that it groans under its own weight, slowly flowing outward from the center of the continent toward the ocean. The edge of the shelf is a cliff, rising 200 feet above the water, and as you draw closer, you can see the layers within it, bands of white and blue that mark the passage of time, each one representing a winter's snowfall compressed over centuries into solid ice. The ship anchors here in the shadow of the ice, and you step out onto the frozen surface of the ocean. Your boots crunch on the sea ice, a sound that seems impossibly loud in the stillness. Around you, the world is white and blue and silent. There is no vegetation here, no trees, no grass, nothing green. Antarctica is a desert, the driest place on Earth, and yet it holds 70% of the world's fresh water, locked in ice that in some places is nearly 3 miles thick. You begin to walk inland, away from the coast, and the landscape opens up before you. It is a world of white, endless, and featureless, stretching to the horizon in every direction. The sky above is pale, almost white itself, blending seamlessly with the snow, so that there is no clear line between earth and sky. This is called a whiteout, a phenomenon unique to polar regions, where the lack of contrast makes it impossible to judge distance or depth. You could be standing on flat ground or at the edge of a cliff, and you would not know until you took another step. But you are safe, walking slowly, feeling the cold air on your face, listening to the sound of your own breathing. After some time, the landscape begins to change. Mountains appear in the distance, dark peaks that rise from the ice like islands in a frozen sea. These are the Transantarctic Mountains, one of the longest mountain ranges on Earth, stretching for over 2,000 miles across the continent. They divide Antarctica into two regions, East Antarctica and West Antarctica, each with its own character, its own secrets. As you approach the mountains, you enter a valley, and suddenly the white world gives way to something unexpected. Rock. Bare, exposed rock, red and brown and ancient, free of ice and snow. This is one of the dry valleys, a series of ice-free valleys that are among the most extreme environments on Earth. Here, the wind is so strong and the air so dry that snow cannot accumulate. Instead, it evaporates before it touches the ground, leaving the valleys bare, exposing rock that has not seen moisture in millions of years. Scientists come here to study these valleys because they are the closest thing on Earth to the surface of Mars. The conditions are similar, cold and dry and hostile to life, and yet, even here, life persists. In the rocks, you can find lichens, tiny organisms that grow so slowly that a patch the size of your hand may be hundreds of years old. They cling to the stone, drawing what little moisture they can from the air, surviving in a place where almost nothing else can. You kneel down to look at one, and it is beautiful in its simplicity. A splash of orange and green against the grey rock, a tiny spark of life in a frozen desert. As you stand and continue walking, you become aware of the sound again. The wind. It is constant here, blowing down from the polar plateau, carrying with it the cold of the interior, a cold so profound that it can freeze exposed skin in minutes. The wind shapes everything in Antarctica, carving the snow into waves and ridges called sastrugi, polishing the ice until it gleams like glass. It is a lonely sound, a howling that rises and falls, but in its constancy, there is something almost meditative, a rhythm that becomes part of the landscape itself. You listen to it now, letting it wash over you, feeling your body relax, your mind grow quiet. The cold does not bother you here in this place, because you are only visiting, only drifting through, an observer in a world that has existed long before you and will continue long after. You leave the dry valleys behind and return to the ice, walking now toward the coast once more, but this time to a different place, a place where the ice meets the sea in a different way. Here, the glaciers flow directly into the ocean, rivers of ice that move with impossible slowness, creeping forward mere inches each day, but carrying with them the weight of centuries. These are the outlet glaciers, the arteries through which Antarctica's ice drains into the sea. You stand at the edge of one now, looking out at the ice as it extends into the water, and you can see the cracks forming in its surface, deep crevasses that run for miles, some so deep that their bottoms are lost in blue shadow. The glacier creaks and groans, the ice shifting, adjusting, and suddenly, without warning, a massive section breaks away. It falls into the ocean with a sound like thunder, sending up a spray of water and ice that glitters in the low sun. This is calving, the process by which glaciers give birth to icebergs. And it is happening all around you now, constantly. The ice breaking apart and drifting away, carrying with it bubbles of air that were trapped thousands of years ago, tiny capsules of ancient atmosphere. You watch as the newly born iceberg floats away, rocking gently in the waves, and you realize that it will drift now for years, perhaps decades, moving slowly northward with the currents until it reaches warmer waters and melts, releasing that ancient air back into the sky. But for now, it is here, part of this frozen world, and you are here with it, breathing the same cold air, standing on the same ancient ice. The sound of the carving echoes across the water, a deep boom that reverberates through your chest. And then, slowly, it fades, leaving only the gentle lap of waves against the ice and the whisper of wind across the snow. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds wash over you, and when you open them again, you notice something else. A different sound, higher pitched, more musical. It is coming from the ice itself, a singing, a resonance that seems to pulse and hum like the strings of a vast instrument. This is the singing ice, a phenomenon that occurs when the temperature changes cause the ice to expand and contract, creating vibrations that travel through the glacier like sound waves through a bell. The effect is haunting, beautiful, a song that has been playing here for millennia, unheard by human ears until recently. You stand and listen to the ice sing, and the sound is both alien and deeply familiar, like the memory of a lullaby from childhood, half forgotten but still comforting. The notes rise and fall, some high and crystalline, others low and resonant, and together they create a harmony that seems to come from the earth itself. Scientists have only recently begun to understand this phenomenon, using sensitive microphones to record the sounds the ice makes as it moves and shifts. They have discovered that each glacier has its own signature, its own voice, and that by listening to these sounds, they can learn about the health of the ice, about how it is responding to changes in temperature and pressure. But for you, standing here in this moment, the science does not matter. What matters is the beauty of it, the sheer wonder of standing on a continent of ice and hearing it sing. As you stand here, you notice movement in the distance. At first, it is hard to see, just dark shapes against the white, but as you watch, they come into focus. Penguins, a colony of emperor penguins, hundreds of them, gathered together on the ice. They stand perfectly still, huddled close to one another for warmth, their bodies pressed together in a tight formation that shifts and moves like a single living organism. This is how they survive the winter, taking turns on the inside of the huddle where it is warmest, rotating slowly so that no single bird must endure the cold outer edge for too long. You move closer, walking slowly so as not to disturb them. And as you approach, you can hear the sounds they make, soft calls and murmurs that pass through the colony like waves. The emperor penguin is the largest of all penguin species, standing nearly 4 feet tall, with sleek black backs and bright yellow patches on their necks that glow like gold in the polar light. They are magnificent creatures, perfectly adapted to this harsh environment, able to dive deeper and hold their breath longer than any other bird on Earth. In the winter, when the seas freeze and the temperatures plummet to -70 degrees, the males remain on the ice, each one balancing a single egg on his feet, keeping it warm beneath a fold of skin while the females travel back to the ocean to feed. For 2 months, the males stand like this, not eating, barely moving, enduring the darkest and coldest season on the planet for the sake of their young. You watch them now in the summer light, and they seem peaceful, content, their sleek bodies gleaming as they waddle across the ice or slide on their bellies toward the water's edge. One penguin breaks away from the group and approaches you, tilting its head to the side, curious. It makes a soft, trumpeting sound, and you stand very still, letting it investigate. After a moment, it loses interest and waddles away, rejoining the colony, and you are left alone again with the ice and the wind and the endless white horizon. As you continue your journey across the frozen surface, you come upon another sight, one that is both strange and beautiful. Lying on the ice ahead, perfectly still, is a seal, a Weddell seal, one of the few mammals that can survive year-round in these waters. It is enormous, weighing perhaps half a ton, its body covered in spotted grey fur that blends with the ice and snow. The seal is sleeping, its breathing slow and rhythmic, its whiskers twitching slightly as it dreams. You approach carefully, quietly, not wanting to disturb it. And as you draw closer, you can see the details of its face, the large, dark eyes closed in sleep, the rounded snout, the thick layer of blubber beneath the skin that insulates it from the cold. Weddell seals are remarkable creatures, capable of diving to depths of over 2,000 feet and holding their breath for more than an hour. They hunt for fish beneath the ice, navigating in total darkness, using their whiskers to sense vibrations in the water, and when they need to breathe, they surface at holes in the ice, sometimes traveling miles beneath the frozen surface to find them. But for now, this seal is resting, conserving energy, its body completely relaxed against the ice. You watch it for a long moment, observing the gentle rise and fall of its breath, and you feel a sense of kinship with this creature, a fellow mammal trying to survive in one of the harshest places on Earth. The seal does not wake, does not even stir, and after a time, you turn away, leaving it to its dreams, and continue your walk across the ice. The landscape here is flatter now, more uniform, and you realize that you are approaching the coast again, the place where the ice meets the open ocean. The wind has picked up, carrying with it the smell of salt and seaweed, and you can hear the sound of waves in the distance, a rhythmic crashing that grows louder with each step. You walk until you reach the edge, and there you stop, standing at the boundary between two worlds. Behind you is the ice, the white desert that stretches for millions of square miles, a frozen continent that holds secrets buried deep within its core. Ahead of you is the ocean, dark and vast and filled with life, a world that exists beneath the surface, hidden from view, but no less real, no less extraordinary. The water here is black, so dark that you cannot see more than a few feet below the surface, and it moves with a slow, powerful rhythm, swells rising and falling like the breath of some great sleeping beast. Ice flows drift past, carried by the current, and in the distance you can see the shapes of icebergs, some small, some massive, all of them drifting slowly northward toward warmer waters. You stand at the water's edge, feeling the cold spray on your face, and you look down into the darkness. Somewhere beneath the surface, beneath the ice and the waves, there is another world, a hidden world that few have ever seen. It is a world of blue cathedrals and ancient creatures, of glowing lights in the darkness and secrets buried in the deep. It is a world that calls to you now, inviting you to leave the surface behind, to sink into the cold water and discover what lies beneath. Your breathing slows, your body relaxes, and you feel yourself beginning to let go, beginning to drift. The ice and the wind and the endless white desert fade into the background, and all that remains is the water, dark and deep and waiting. You take one last breath of the cold Antarctic air, and then, slowly, you begin to descend. As you slip beneath the surface, the world transforms. The cold is immediate, absolute, but it does not hurt. In this dreamlike state, you are protected, able to move through water that would freeze a human body in minutes, able to breathe liquid darkness as easily as air. The light from above fades quickly, the golden glow of the Antarctic sun filtering down through the ice in shafts that grow dimmer with each meter you descend. The water here is clearer than any you have ever seen, so pure and so cold that visibility extends for hundreds of feet in every direction. You are suspended now in a space between worlds, no longer on the surface, but not yet in the deep, drifting slowly downward through bands of light and shadow. Above you, the underside of the ice shelf comes into view, and it is nothing like the surface. Where the top of the ice is white and wind-carved, the bottom is smooth and sculpted, shaped by the movement of water into flowing, organic forms that resemble the interior of a great cathedral. The ice glows with an inner light, a blue so pure and so intense that it seems almost supernatural, as though the ice itself is luminous. This is the blue of compressed time, of snow that fell thousands of years ago and has been pressed and compacted until all the air has been squeezed out, leaving only the densest, purest ice. Light that enters this ice is absorbed and scattered, and only the blue wavelengths escape, creating the color you see now, a color that exists nowhere else on Earth except here, beneath the Antarctic ice. You drift closer to the ice ceiling, reaching out to touch it, and the surface is not smooth but textured, rippled like sand on a beach, carved by the gentle current that flows beneath the shelf. In some places, the ice hangs down in long formations, stalactites of frozen water that extend downward like the fingers of a giant hand. In other places, there are caverns and channels, passageways that wind through the ice, carved by the flow of meltwater from above. The effect is breathtaking, otherworldly, and as you move through this underwater landscape, you feel as though you have entered a sacred space, a temple built not by human hands, but by time and pressure, and the slow movement of glaciers across the continent. As you drift away from the ice ceiling and deeper into the water column, you begin to notice movement. At first, it is subtle, just small specks drifting past like snow in reverse, falling upward toward the ice. These are krill, tiny crustaceans, no longer than your finger, and they exist here in numbers that are almost impossible to comprehend. A single swarm can contain billions of individuals, stretching for miles across the ocean, and together they represent one of the largest biomasses on Earth. The krill feed on algae that grows on the underside of the ice, scraping it off with their delicate mouthparts, and in turn, they are fed upon by nearly every other creature in the Antarctic food web. Whales, seals, penguins, fish, squid, all depend on the krill for survival. Without them, this entire ecosystem would collapse. You watch them now as they drift through the water, their translucent bodies catching the light, and they seem almost like stars, a galaxy of tiny lives moving through the darkness. As you descend further, the water grows darker, the blue fading to indigo, and the temperature drops even lower. You are entering the twilight zone now, the depth where sunlight can barely penetrate, where the world exists in a state of perpetual dusk. Here, the creatures are different, stranger, adapted to a life lived in shadows. You see fish gliding past, their bodies elongated and ghostly pale, almost translucent. These are Antarctic toothfish, also called Chilean sea bass, though they live nowhere near Chile. They move slowly, conservatively, their blood filled with antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystals from forming in their cells, allowing them to survive in water that is below the normal freezing point of blood. Their eyes are large, adapted to gather what little light exists at this depth, and they watch you as you pass, curious but not afraid. And then you see something that makes you pause, something so strange and so unexpected that for a moment you cannot process what you are looking at. Crawling across a rock on the ocean floor, moving with painful slowness, is a spider. But this is not the small creature you might find in a garden. This is a sea spider, and it is enormous, its legs spanning more than a foot from tip to tip, each one thin and delicate, like a strand of wire. The body of the spider is tiny, barely the size of a coin, and yet it supports these impossibly long legs, which it uses to crawl across the seafloor in search of food. Sea spiders are ancient creatures, relatives of modern spiders and scorpions, and they have existed in the Antarctic waters for millions of years. They feed on soft-bodied animals like sponges and sea anemones, piercing them with a long proboscis and sucking out their fluids. The one you are watching now moves with hypnotic slowness, lifting one leg, then another, each movement deliberate and precise, and you find yourself mesmerized by its alien grace. You continue your descent, and the ocean floor comes into clearer view. It is not barren, but alive, covered in a carpet of color that seems impossible in this dark, cold place. There are sponges here, massive and ancient, some of them hundreds of years old, growing so slowly that they might add only a millimeter to their size in a year. They come in shades of yellow and orange and deep crimson, their porous bodies filtering water constantly, extracting nutrients from the current. Around them, sea stars crawl slowly across the rocks, some with 5 arms, some with 10, some with dozens, radiating out from a central disk like the petals of a flower. There are brittle stars as well, their long, delicate arms coiled around rocks and sponges, waiting for food to drift past. And everywhere, there are anemones, their tentacles waving gently in the current, each one tipped with stinging cells that paralyze any small creature unfortunate enough to brush against them. This is a world that moves in slow motion, where growth is measured in decades rather than seasons, where a single creature might live for centuries, slowly building its body one cell at a time. The cold water here preserves everything, slowing metabolism, extending lifespans, creating a community of ancient beings that have existed in this place since long before humans ever saw Antarctica. You drift among them, observing but not touching, a visitor in a realm that has no concept of time as you understand it. And then, emerging from the darkness ahead, you see a shape. It is large, much larger than anything you have seen so far. and at first you cannot make out what it is. But as it draws closer, moving with slow, powerful strokes, you realize what you are looking at. A seal, but not a Weddell seal like the one you saw sleeping on the ice. This is a leopard seal, one of the apex predators of the Antarctic waters, and it is magnificent. Its body is long and sleek, built for speed, covered in spotted grey fur that gives it its name. Its head is enormous, with a wide mouth filled with sharp, interlocking teeth designed for gripping and tearing. Leopard seals are fearsome hunters, capable of taking penguins, fish, and even other seals. But as this one passes you, it shows no interest, no aggression. It simply glides by, its large dark eyes watching you with mild curiosity, and then it is gone, disappearing back into the blue darkness from which it came. You watch it fade into the distance, and you feel no fear, only awe. In this place, you are not a threat and not prey, simply another presence in the water, another consciousness drifting through the deep. Your breathing remains slow and steady, your body completely relaxed, and you continue to sink, drawn deeper by an invisible current, by a pull you cannot name, but cannot resist. The water grows darker still, the blue fading to black, and you realize you are approaching the abyssal zone, the deepest part of the Antarctic Ocean, where pressure is immense and light does not exist. But then something changes. In the darkness ahead, you see a glow. At first, it is faint, just a pale shimmer, but as you drift closer, it grows brighter, resolving into distinct points of light that pulse and flicker like stars. These are jellyfish, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, drifting through the water in a loose cloud, their translucent bodies glowing with bioluminescence. They pulse as they move, contracting and expanding, their bells opening and closing in a rhythm that is both mechanical and organic, and with each pulse, they emit light, a soft green glow that illuminates the water around them. Their tentacles trail behind them, long and delicate, and they drift on the current like ghosts, like spirits moving through an underwater cathedral. You float among them, surrounded by their gentle light, and the effect is hypnotic. Bioluminescence is one of the ocean's greatest mysteries, a phenomenon found in creatures throughout the deep sea, from bacteria to fish to squid. Some use it to attract prey, luring smaller animals toward them with false promises of food. Some use it to communicate, flashing patterns that signal to others of their kind. And some use it to defend themselves, creating bursts of light that startle and confuse predators. But the jellyfish here seem to be using their light for none of these purposes. They simply glow, existing in the darkness, their bodies radiating a soft, peaceful luminescence that asks nothing and offers nothing except beauty. As you drift with them, you notice other lights appearing in the distance. Some are stationary, glowing from rocks on the seafloor, colonies of bioluminescent bacteria that have colonized every available surface. Others move through the water, flashing and pulsing as they pass, fish and squid and creatures whose names you do not know, all of them carrying their own light through the darkness. This is the hidden galaxy of the deep ocean, a constellation of living stars that exists far from the sun, powered not by fusion but by chemistry, by the reaction of proteins and enzymes that create light without heat, cold light that glows in the eternal night. You leave the jellyfish behind and continue downward, and now the ocean floor begins to rise again, forming a ridge, a long spine of rock that extends across the seafloor like the backbone of some buried giant. As you approach it, you notice something strange. The water here is warmer. Not warm by any normal standard, but noticeably less cold than the surrounding ocean. And as you drift over the ridge, you see the source. Cracks in the rock, fissures from which water is flowing, and this water is not cold but hot, heated by volcanic activity deep beneath the Earth's crust. These are hydrothermal vents, underwater geysers that spew superheated water and dissolved minerals into the ocean, and around them, clustered in impossible abundance, is life. The vents rise from the seafloor like chimneys, towers of mineral deposits that are built up over years, over centuries, as the hot water cools and precipitates. From the tops of these chimneys, black smoke billows out, clouds of mineral-rich water that look like smoke from a fire, but are actually dissolved metal sulfides, iron and copper and zinc, streaming into the ocean. And around the base of each vent, there is a garden, a community of creatures that exist not on sunlight, but on chemicals, on the sulfur and methane and hydrogen sulfide that pour from the earth. There are tube worms here, pale and ghostly, their bodies anchored to the rock, their feathery red plumes waving in the current. These worms have no mouth, no digestive system in the traditional sense. Instead, they harbor bacteria inside their bodies, bacteria that convert the chemicals from the vents into energy, and the worms survive on what the bacteria produce. It is a partnership that has existed for millions of years, a relationship so fundamental that neither organism can survive without the other. Around the tube worms, there are other creatures. White crabs scuttle across the rocks, their shells pale and translucent, their eyes reduced to nothing more than light-sensitive spots. There are shrimp clustered in dense swarms around the vent openings, feeding on the bacteria that grow in the hot water. And there are fish, strange blind fish, that have adapted to this environment, navigating by smell and by the electrical fields generated by other living things. This is an ecosystem that exists entirely independent of the sun, powered instead by the heat of the Earth itself. And it is one of the most important discoveries in modern biology. It proves that life does not need sunlight to exist, that it can thrive in the most extreme environments imaginable, and it raises profound questions about where else life might exist, not just on Earth, but throughout the universe. You drift away from the vents, leaving behind the warmth and the smoke and the strange pale creatures that cluster around them, and now you are moving laterally, horizontally, through the water, no longer descending but traveling. You are being carried by a current, a slow, deep current that flows beneath the Antarctic ice, and you let it take you, let it guide you towards something you cannot yet see, but somehow know is there. The darkness is complete now, total and absolute, and yet you are not afraid. In this darkness, there is peace, there is silence, and there is the slow, rhythmic pulse of your own heartbeat, synchronized with the movement of the ocean, with the ancient rhythms of this frozen world. Time passes, though you cannot say how much. Minutes, hours, days, it all blends together in the darkness, in the cold, in the gentle drift of the current, and then, slowly, you become aware that something is changing. The water around you is growing stiller, calmer, and the current that has been carrying you is slowing, weakening, until finally it stops altogether. You are no longer in the open ocean. but in a space that feels enclosed, contained. And as you float here in the darkness, you realize where you are. You have passed beneath the ice sheet itself, beneath the miles of frozen water that cover the continent. And you are now in a place that should not exist, a place that defies all logic and reason. You are in a lake, a vast body of liquid water trapped beneath the ice, sealed off from the outside world for millions of years. This is Lake Vostok, one of the largest subglacial lakes on Earth, a body of water that stretches for over 160 miles and reaches depths of more than 3,000 feet in places. It sits beneath more than 2 miles of ice, pressed down by unimaginable weight, and yet it remains liquid, kept from freezing by the pressure above and by the faint heat that rises from the earth below. The lake has been isolated here for at least 15 million years, cut off from the sun, from the atmosphere, from all contact with the surface world, and during that time, it has existed in perfect darkness, in perfect silence, in perfect stillness. You float in the water of Lake Vostok, and the first thing you notice is the silence. It is not merely the absence of sound, but something deeper, something more profound. It is the silence of a place where sound has not existed for eons, where there have been no waves, no wind, no creatures calling to one another across the water. It is a silence so complete that it feels almost physical, pressing against you, filling your ears and your mind with its vast, empty presence. Above you, the ceiling of the lake is the underside of the ice sheet, smooth and flat and impossibly distant, pressing down with the weight of millennia. Below you, the lake floor stretches away into darkness, and you cannot see the bottom. The water here is different from the ocean water you have passed through. It is fresher, less salty, filtered through centuries of ice, and it is cold, hovering just above the freezing point, kept liquid only by the immense pressure of the ice above. As you float here, suspended in this ancient water, you cannot help but wonder what else might be here with you. Scientists have long speculated about the possibility of life in Lake Vostok, life that has evolved in complete isolation from the rest of the planet, life that might represent a separate branch on the tree of evolution, something utterly unique and utterly strange. If such life exists, it would be microbial, bacteria, or archaea, adapted to survive in conditions that would kill almost any other organism on Earth. They would feed not on sunlight, but on chemicals, on the minerals dissolved in the water, on the faint geothermal energy that seeps up from below. But perhaps there is more. Perhaps there are larger creatures here, fish or crustaceans that have adapted to this eternal darkness, their eyes lost over millions of years of evolution, their bodies pale and ghostly, drifting through the water in search of whatever microscopic prey might exist in this isolated world. Or perhaps there is nothing. Perhaps the lake is sterile, too extreme even for the hardiest forms of life. Scientists do not yet know. The lake has been sampled, but only carefully, only at its edges, because any contamination from the surface could destroy whatever ecosystem might exist here. And so Lake Vostok remains, for now, one of Earth's last great mysteries, a hidden ocean beneath the ice, a world within a world, waiting to reveal its secrets. As you float in the darkness of the lake, you feel your body growing heavier, your mind growing quieter. The silence here is not oppressive, but comforting, like a blanket pulled up around you. like the gentle weight of snow settling on a roof. You let yourself sink deeper into the water, deeper into the stillness. And as you do, you feel all the tension leaving your body, all the thoughts leaving your mind. There is nothing here but water and darkness and silence. Nothing but the slow, gentle pulse of your own breath. And that is enough. That is everything. You realize now that you have traveled as far as you can go, that there is nowhere deeper to descend, no further mystery to pursue. You have journeyed from the frozen surface of Antarctica to the deepest, most hidden part of its secret world, and now it is time to rest. The water holds you gently, supporting your weight, rocking you slowly in an invisible current, and you let yourself relax completely. Let yourself surrender to the darkness and the cold and the eternal silence of this ancient place. Your breathing slows even further now, each breath coming deeper and slower than the last, and you feel yourself beginning to drift, not through water, but through something else, through the boundary between waking and sleeping, between consciousness and dream. The lake around you begins to fade, the darkness becoming softer, warmer, and you realize that you are no longer in Antarctica, but back in your bed, safe and warm beneath your blankets. The journey complete. But the memory remains. The memory of the ice and the ocean, of the glowing jellyfish and the ancient creatures crawling across the seafloor, of the silent lake hidden beneath miles of frozen water. These images will stay with you as you sleep, drifting through your dreams like currents through deep water, and they will carry you down into the deepest, most restful sleep, a sleep as profound and as peaceful as the stillness at the bottom of Lake Vostok. You are safe, you are warm, you are at peace. The hidden world beneath Antarctica continues on without you, its secrets kept, its mysteries preserved, existing in darkness and silence, as it has for millions of years and will for millions more. But you have seen it, you have touched it, and now you carry a piece of it with you, a piece of that ancient stillness, that eternal quiet. Let it fill you now. Let the cold, clear water of the Antarctic Ocean flow through your mind, washing away all thoughts, all worries, all tension. Let the darkness of Lake Vostok surround you, peaceful and complete, asking nothing, offering only rest. Let the silence settle over you like snow, covering everything, muffling everything, until there is nothing left but the slow, gentle rhythm of your breathing and the soft, distant pulse of your heartbeat. Sleep now. Sleep deeply. And let the hidden world beneath the ice carry you away into dreams.